So 2/5. Let's get back to some 2/5 stuff. In which case, one thing I haven't touched on yet is the tritone substitution, which, if we go to the key of C, our 2/5 in the key of C is D minor 7 G7 C. The tritone substitution is something that happens on the 5 chord, but the tritone of G7 is D. So in jazz, I'll try to get a little bit into the theory real quick. The G7, if we play G altered Dom, which is A flat melodic minor, one of the modes of A flat melodic minor is D flat, Lydian flat 7. So that's kind of an inside dominant scale that contains mostly inside notes with that one sharp 11. And then the altered Dom contains all the outside tones. So G7 altered and D flat, Lydian flat 7 are the same scale. But even taking it even smaller is that if we look at the tritone of G7, or when I not the tritone, the tritone that's inside the chord. Okay, so G7 is G, B, D, F. So there's a tritone in there in that arpeggio. The B and the F are tritones of each other. That's not the tritone of G, which is D flat. That's a tritone interval inside the G7 chord. And that's what gives the G7 its kind of signature sound. You can just play that a lot of times in comping. And so that tritone is also the tritone interval in the D flat dominant chord. It's just reversed. Over G, F is the flat 7 and B is the major third. On D flat, F is the major third and B is the flat 7, so it's flipped around. But it's the same tritone, whether it's G in the bass and it's G7 or D flat in the bass. So because they share that tritone, they're considered sort of interchangeable, at least in terms of jazz. So when you're comping on the D minor, you can go to the G7, or from the D minor, we just go right down to the B flat, and that creates a chromatic line. So D minor has D in the bass, D minor 7, and then the D flat 7, of course, is D flat, so that, and then C in the bass on the C. So you get this instead of the fourth that the normal 2/5 has. So in a sort of jazz theory, G7 and D flat 7 are very interchangeable. So the first step would be to practice a D minor 7 arpeggio, in one position, and then take a D flat dominant arpeggio in the close by position, and then practice going to C. So we can play lines on the D minor, and then go to the D flat dominant, and resolve to the C. So I'll write out the arpeggios, D minor right here, and then going down 1 fret, we have a D flat 7. Then we could go back to the D minor, or go up 1 fret, and there's a position of D flat dominant, right? Sort of like 1 fret up. So, we could go in either direction. That time I went up 1 fret to the D flat and then resolve to the C. So we can, eventually it'll all kind of blend in, but so let's look at it that way. Then if we go down here, close to the 3rd fret, we have a D flat down here, a D minor. And then there's a D flat right there. So I'll write out 3 D here, the arpeggio, up 1 fret, and then the C in this area, and a D arpeggio, down 1 fret, the D flat, down 1 fret, and then the D here, the arpeggio, which would be like right there, and then a D flat. that would go along with that one, and that would be the same D flat that if we play the D here and go down 1 fret, or start the D here, that's going to be the same D flat, you know. But just to you know, have a couple different examples. So I'll write out those 2 5s that I played that used the D minor and then went to a D, one up here, one down here. You know, I played a couple different 2 5s. There's the D flat, C, D minor, D flat. So a couple other things I wanted to add to the tritone thing. I'm going to keep thinking of things to add for the next 3 days. This video is going to drive me crazy because the tritone thing is so kind of in depth. But so for one thing is I want to point out that in any 2/5 you can always, you know, substitute the tritone. Just you kind of use your discretion, use your ear. But you know, and this is in the key of C. But it's very easy to remember because it just creates a chromatic line. So for a D, it's just down 1 fret and then 1 more fret to the C. If we're in the key of F, G minor is the 2, and then so we just drop 1 fret to F sharp, G flat, dominant, Lydian flat 7 type sound. It doesn't have to be Lydian flat 7. You know, sometimes Charlie Parker would just treat it as Mixolydian. You know, I mean, there's a little bit of room there to work with. And then, anyway, resolve to F. So there's that. But the other thing I want to point out is going back to C. When you do it on the tritone sub, on the D flat, any of the outside notes, or inside notes rather, of D flat are outside notes of the G altered. If we make a comparison, if we start with D, it's the root of D, and it's the tritone or sharp 11 flat 5 of G. The E flat, which is the 9 of D flat, and inside note is the sharp 5 of G. The F is neutral, it's the 3rd and the flat 7 of G, flat 7 of G, 3rd of D flat. The G is the root of G, but it's an outside note on D flat. It's a sharp 11 as the tritone of D. The A flat, which is the 5 of D flat, is an out note on this flat 9 of G. And then the B flat, which is the 6 of D, the major 6, which is inside, is the sharp 9 of G. And then the flat 7 is neutral. It's the flat 7 of D flat B, and it's the major 3rd. So the flat 7 and major 3rd just reverse on the tritones. So that's why you want to keep, when you're doing the tritone sub, you generally stick to Lydian flat 7. You stick to inside D flat dominant stuff that's inside sounding, because you're really creating outside tensions on the G. You know, if you start using outside stuff on the D flat, you're really just going to be playing inside G7 stuff. So it's kind of, it almost defeats the point. So you generally, when you do the tritone sub, we generally stick to a major, you know, add the 9, use the 6. The only outside tone is that sharp 4, you know, because that's the G. That's kind of important note. Beyond the arpeggios, we don't want to just use arpeggio notes. So when you're playing the D flat arpeggio, for example, you know, the scale around it would be the D flat Lydian flat 7 scale. Which I'll get to next time. Let's start out with just this one, the D flat Lydian flat 7 scale, which is the same as G altered. You know, it is the same, even though the notes are the same. When you get into the scale, it's like, well, it's the same scale. So the difference would be is when you're playing it as a D flat dominant, you're focusing more on the D flat arpeggio. So you're trying to create this like that type of a sound. If you just, you know, kind of go for the scale, the whole scale, there's no way to really tell if is it the tritone sub, is it G altered dominant, which, you know, it's, so when we're playing the tritone sub, it's not as important, you know, the the scale isn't quite as important as focusing on the arpeggio tones. And then you can add in, so we have the basic D flat dominant 7 arpeggio, you know, and then we can start adding in tensions like the sharp 11. You know, there's the sharp 11 added in. We can also add the 9, of course, which makes the tetrachord, the E flat, and then the only other note really left with is the 6 of the D flat, the B flat. So I'll write out some of that stuff, and you know, to sort of start getting into. So again, it's the same notes as the G altered Dom scale. So it also is. You could also look at it as A flat melodic minor. So G altered Dom, D leading flat 7, and A flat melodic minor are all the same scale. But it's good to practice, you know, it's good to be able to see it as all three. So when you come off the D7, if you do the tritone sub, you know, you want to have the arpeggio, but it's also good to know the scale as D flat leading flat 7. And then the resolve to C. So there's sort of three uses. You know, you can also see it as A flat melodic minor. Sometimes when you're playing in G altered Dom, you kind of need to think of it as A flat melodic minor. It just helps to anchor it to a familiar shape. But you know, for right now, let's just deal with the D flat. The D flat Lydian flat 7. And so I'll write out some stuff in the scale, and you know, check out the 2 5s, and then from there, you know, you can just practice trying to make up some lines using the arpeggio and the scale tones. Also, approach notes on the D flat work, which will give you outside notes. You can do any approach notes on any of the chord tones of the D flat. In the 5th or the 3rd or the root of the D flat, that works too. And passing tones, you know, like so our D flat 7 arpeggio, we go from 7 to 4 here, you know, so you can pass through those tones. All that stuff works. Big things in jazz is the tritone substitution on 2 5s. You know, you see that all the time. You can do it freely. If the bass player doesn't do it and you do it, it works out fine. You know, like Jimmy Bruno said, some of those weird clashes, that just ends up being what jazz sounds like. You know, even if you get one guy plays the sharp 9 or the natural 9 and you're playing the flat 9 or sharp 9, that's going to be a strange tension. But you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, those tensions go by quickly, and you don't have to worry too much. You know, too much about that stuff. You just kind of play what's in your head and go from there. So cool. Tritone sub. That's it. Also in comping, it's all the same. You know, you can use the G7 or you can use the D7, anything from the D7, you know, could be with a 9. It's Lydian flat 7, so you could use the sharp 11, D7 with a sharp 11, D flat 7 with a sharp 11, with the 6, the 9, you know, anything from that fits the Lydian flat 7. And what Lydian flat 7 is, it's just mix of Lydian, D flat, E flat, root 9, 3rd, but it has a sharp 4, 5, natural 6, flat 7. So it's mix of Lydian, like D flat mixo, but with a sharp 4, and that gives you the G that connects it to the G7. Also, what I did in the beginning, I played the G arpeggio and then the D arpeggio. That actually gives you notes. That's from G diminished. That's a different thing than what we're doing today. But that's another thing you can do. I'll get into that because we'll cover that when I get to the diminished scale. So that's it for now. Any questions, let me know. And rock on. We'll see you next time. Thanks.